Why have I quit my job? Why have I, bought a van? And why am I going to drive around the country? Well, I'm passionate about the idea that you need to be heard. And I want to stitch these stories together across the states. We're going to find the commonalities. And it's going to be really an amazing experience. And I look forward to you joining me on the jar. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Mental Health Today. I'm your host, Ken, and it's another great episode, great guest lined up. I'm really excited. Somebody who's kind of come to me through a strange source, but a little group that I'm connected with for public speaking. And Jamie's got a really interesting story and a wild career choice as a young person. And and I think it's not often we get to hear really directly from super competitors. So I'm looking forward to hearing Jamie's story. That the little video you saw there is me, kind of that's an overdub I did about 30 months ago when I was in Asia, and kind of imagining what the jar journey would be like. And then there's a little video there is actually the guys putting the stickers on the van, and 230-ish, sorry, 330 interviews later and 96 cities. I kind of pause the jar for a little bit and work on some other projects and get back to the road soon, and hearing people's stories and hearing their, kind of their views on humanity and life. But this Mental Health Today podcast is really born out of that, and the idea that, really everybody's got a mental health story. It seemed to be a thread throughout the jar, and, so many great inspirational stories of people finding, what might have been a tragedy or a hard moment or a setback in life that turns out to be a gift, and really embracing that gift and sharing that gift with the world, and what it means. And so all of us can kind of look at, even when we're struggling, just knowing that there's another facet to the struggle, and trying to find that, view, the way to look at it as a gift and not something that's happened to us. And I think, Jamie, wow. I mean, you for sure, you for sure probably were in those moments where you were thinking, why, well, why me? And coming out of it, and kind of finding, it seems now, to be sharing your gift with people from the stage. So Jamie MoCrazy, thank you for being a guest. Thanks for taking time out of your day and coming to share with us.
Thank you for having me, and I'm excited to talk.
Yeah. And I'm excited to, this is fun because I did a little bit of poking around and not too much. And then I didn't want to spoil it for myself because I know a bit of the backstory, but I don't know your story. And so maybe take the audience a little bit, through what was it, you're a professional skier, and how does somebody get into that as a child, right? How does that happen?
So, how I got into it as a child was that it came through my family.
Yeah.
My grandmother actually was a professional skier in the 1940s. She was
Whoa.
in the first ever Warren Miller ski movies. And so I started skiing when I was a year old. I don't have it before I was a skier. And then I also did gymnastics, and I had a very competitive and ambitious personality. And
Okay.
I had a mom who actually had a federal grant from the government to teach self esteem to women when I was a child. So I had this understanding that I could do whatever I wanted to
Yeah, do
do
anything.
if I took the steps. So if I had a goal and I set attainable goals to reach that goal, I could accomplish it regardless of anyone who said I couldn't do it. So that helped me out tremendously and led to me to combine skiing and gymnastics. I was actually interviewed when I was 10 years old because I won state championships in skiing and I won state championships in gymnastics. And I said in the interview I wanted to combine the two of them. And that's what happened with slopestyle skiing, which is when you slide down snow and you do tricks off jumps and you slide rails. So it's a creative form of gymnastics on snow.
What, I mean, just wild stuff watching that. watching the sport evolve, I was also a gymnast as a kid. Now, I was not very good, but I was definitely a gymnast all the way through high school, went to gymnastics camp and
Oh,
everything else.
cool.
Yeah, I spent a lot of times in Northern Wisconsin up in a gymnastics camp, all summers, from the time I was about 8 until almost about 17. And so I was, really in the gymnastics world and just incredible athletics in the
Mhm.
gymnastics world. The power and the strength of people. And then I think you look at skiing, really a I mean, a blazingly fast sport, super dangerous. And then doing this tricks and adding in tricks and everything else sounds like a recipe for trouble.
Well, it did end up having some trouble for me. I do know a fair amount of people who have had fabulous careers and continued on, but for me, I was actually competing at World Tour Finals in 2015 when on my second run I landed on my feet, but I caught an edge and I whiplashed my head onto the snow in such a way that my brain started bleeding in 8 spots, and I hurt my right brainstem, which paralyzed the right side of my body. And this
Oh,
is actually a story I'm telling you that I have no memory of because I was in a coma.
oh goodness. Do you what was your last memory? Was it showing up to the event or just some time before?
Yeah, it's kind of fuzzy. Some of my last events was there's this boy that I liked and going on a date with him, which was like the day before we left. And I remember like getting into the car with my little sister and driving up to Whistler Mountain in Canada. And that's about it. I don't really remember. I remember vaguely staying, but not really, at my mom's friend's house in
Yeah,
Seattle on the way, but I don't really have much memory of that, and I don't really have memory of the training days. I have no memory of the competition,
yeah, yeah.
no memory of months after the competition.
What is that? What's the community like there? That's got to be a pretty small fraternity of competitors, growing up, right? Because maybe starts out at 10, there's a lot, and 13, there's a lot, but you start getting to you start getting a little bit older. That's going to be narrowing down to a small group of competitors. How
Yeah,
What is that like at that level of sports?
it's interesting because I grew up a ski racer, which is around the gates racing,
Mhm.
and I had some of my best friends were also ski
Yeah.
racers. We were part of a team, and I loved it. And when I actually switched to freestyle at the beginning, I was one of the only girls my age on the team, and I got a lot of hate. I was good, so I was getting into competitions that all the boys wanted to get into, and they just said I got into it because I was a girl and there weren't. Um,
Oh,
and I liked pink. I love magenta, and they made fun of me for my pink snow pants and my coffee culottes, and were like, "You." Actually, my first video, someone commented on it and said, "You are way too much of a girl to ever be a pro skier." And I was like, "What? What?" And
Oh,
at the time, I was like a 16-year-old, 17-year-old, and I changed who I was. I got white snow pants and Tupac tall tees, and that's not.
really?
If that's you, that's fine. But I conformed to who they wanted me to be, and then I realized that I didn't really care, and I got pink snow pants, and then I became the first woman in the world to do a double backflip at X Games, and I was like, you know what? I can do them, and I can wear pink snow pants, and I can be as feminine as I want to be, and wear as much pink as I want, and
Yeah.
be as much of a badass as I want. So you can't put limits on me, um, which I think is very important when you are a young adult or a teenager. You are always, in general, fighting to be who you are and not
Yeah.
who you think others expect you to be in some way or another.
That's so cool. I mean, wow, my brain stopped when you said double backflip. It's like, because I know what a backflip takes. But moving on skis and then going off a jump and just doing that full open double back and then landing back on your skis, that's wild. And there's no, in gymnastics, you used to have the belts, right? And the coach would run
Right.
down, the rails and they'd run you down, and it was super safe. H- How does that work on a ski jump? I mean, how do you learn to do a double backflip without hurting yourself?
Well, the way I learned how to do it was I learned how to do double backflips on the trampoline
Yeah,
and
yeah, sure. Oh,
hundreds of those. And I started out with the belt on the
oh,
trampoline.
okay.
And then I did it on the water ramps, which is when you slide down plastic and you flip into a pool.
Into a pool. Okay.
Yeah, and I did thousands of those, and then I did it on snow. But similar to gymnastics, when you have the belt and you're
Yeah.
guarded, and then that's away, the first time you do it, you have to fully commit. Like you have to know that, and you have to trust your body that you are capable of doing it and commit to it. Because once they take the support away, if you don't commit, it's not good. So same thing when you go on snow, you have to fully commit the first time, which is something that I've learned in speaking and life, and everything I do after my skiing career is I think sports and being competitive in anything you do and doing any type of like acrobatic thing, it really teaches you to commit
Mm.
and follow through with your commitments.
I love that. I mean, the 2 lessons, like 2 instant takeaways, right? This commitment and also not, being genuine to yourself. The first
Mhm.
one, you talked about picking your own color, and then going to white and then realizing, "Oh, that's silly. What am I doing? I'm pink." Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's my color. That's who I am. And then also really, the commitment, but also the discipline to do the practice,
Mhm.
thousands, like you said, thousands of them, and then being able to do it. But still, there's that mental moment where you have to commit and you have to
Yeah.
commit fully. But nobody's a professional without the practice. I
Right. It
can't imagine. Yeah.
takes a lot of practice. And it's interesting because I did have a very severe traumatic brain injury. And I did land that trick on my feet before I caught an edge. And I had done practice. I thought that I had done the safety for everything. And things happen. You can't
Mm.
control everything in life. I actually have an older sister who passed away from cancer.
Wow.
And she was actually a doctor in Connecticut who was my primary care physician when I was in the coma. She went up to Whistler and made rounds with the other doctors, and she had an active role in saving my life.
Wow.
I couldn't save her life, which is really hard because life's not fair. It's not smooth, and it doesn't always click for everyone the way you think it should, or you've done the time and the preparation. However, I also know that if you are alive, you have the ability to be living. Um,
Mm.
and if you are alive, you can take the steps and you can have the repetition and you can rewire your brain and you can create a life you love to be living. And
Mm.
if you're alive, don't waste your life. Just don't waste your life being miserable if you can make yourself have the opportunity to be happy.
Yeah. I mean, wow, that had to be a crazy emotional journey. Like you said, your sister helped save your life, but you couldn't
Mhm.
help her. Whew, that's
Yeah.
heavy. That's heavy.
Yeah. I've had a lot of emotions in the last decade.
Yes. How old were you when you had the accident or when you
I was 22 when I had
okay.
my traumatic brain injury.
Okay, so you're almost 30 now or
I
30-ish.
I am 31
Yeah,
now.
30, yeah.
And my older sister passed away in March of 2022. And then
Okay.
in May of 2022, I went back to the mountain that almost took my life to marry the love of my life at the peak.
Really, get out of here. That's so
And
cool.
so, as my mom said, 2022 was a very average life. Huge ups and huge downs to make it.
I like your mom.
Yeah, me too.
I kind of that's what a great way to what a great articulation. Pretty average year.
Yeah.
Um, and what is your speaking, when you're speaking now to audiences and sharing your story, your gift, right? It's a gift now. Um, what's the what's that part of the story that still kind of gives you a little emotion? You must, because this is personal and it's real. What's that part of the story that kind of still gets you?
Well, we just in February of 2023 premiered our documentary at Big Sky Documentary Film Festival, and we last year have gone on a film festival run to 17 different film festivals and winning multiple awards,
Oh,
which is really exciting.
wow.
Um, and the film, it's a short documentary called #MoCrazy Strong, and it tells the whole story. And people ask me, when did you decide you wanted to be so public? And the truth is, when I was in a coma, it was decided for me that it was a
Yeah.
public story. I was already on national television. I was in the news. The competition was on national TV. I was the cover of Vancouver Sun like a year and a half later. It was public from the beginning. Um, so that wasn't even really a question. But then the other
Right.
question is, what affects you most about it? And honestly, what affects me most about it is the very end when I dedicated the film to my older sister. And once I had seen it so many times at different film festivals and I had kind of gotten that like amazing rush calming down, I
Yes.
still tear up when I hear that music and I see In Loving Memory. Because my story, it's such a huge part of my life and it is so public, but it went wonderfully. And it's
Mm,
really challenging when you try to do everything and you work your hardest and my sister was a doctor. She had a lot of contacts that were doctors and they were trying everything they could and she just kept hitting dead ends. So like
yeah.
every time I tried creative things and I worked really hard and my family worked really hard for my recovery. There was a lot of work that went into it. That same repetition that we talked about
Oh,
being
yeah.
an athlete was the same thing for the recovery. Like so many people are like, oh, I can't do this or I can't do this or I can't do this because of a brain injury. And it's like, can you really not do it, or are you victimizing yourself and you have to do it differently but you can still get it done? So that happened
Mm.
in my recovery process, but it's really challenging when you try everything and you do everything and you have that belief and then it just permanently ends.
It's an interesting bookend to your story, right? It's this that yours worked out and you still couldn't make this one work out. So it's not always a happy ending. Um, how do you fit that message in with your story from the stage? I mean, I think it's also worth reminding everybody that you're doing public speaking, you're sharing the story now, trying to help other people see the advantages they have, or if they do have a challenge, that it is an advantage in some way. You can turn it into something for yourself. But I think from the stage, are you framing it in that way? Have you thought about that? Is that what I mean? Because there is that, whew, those are some, it's a happy story and a tough story. And how do you put those together? How do you reconcile that from the stage?
So that's a good question. As it is right now, I don't really.
Yeah.
I talk about my story, overcoming the brain
Yeah.
injury, invisible struggles, and how
Okay.
to surpass the invisible struggles. I do quite often show my film at speaking events,
Okay.
and then dive in deeper to it. So I do sometimes touch on that,
Yeah.
you know, things happen and you can't like say, why did this happen to me? Why did this brain injury happen to me? When it's like, well, why did cancer happen to her? So I do touch on it a little bit, about your inability to control things. However, you do have the ability, if you are alive, every single person who is alive has the capability to build a life they love, to take what happened to them and look at it with the mindset that they can take their changes in ability level, they can take everything that happened and build a life that they
Yeah.
love if they do it. Like if they let
Yeah.
themselves succeed.
Yeah. And I think it is often easier to surrender to it, because it's hard work. Like you said, it took a lot of people and you have a training background, commitment background. You have the team, right? You had teams around you, which helped supported your training and everything. Um, So this was something you're good at. You trained for this moment in some strange way, right? I mean, you're used to seeing a goal and then breaking it down and okay, I can't use my arm at all. Okay, can I move my fingers? Can I move my pinky? What can how do I start to build that back? And I don't think everybody, it's easier, I think, sometimes for people to lay down and surrender to it. And
Oh, it's
so it's
way easier.
way easier, right?
I think it's way, way easier. And like when I was in the hospital, um, and my right side didn't work, it, instead of my mom saying, "Why don't you cut with your left hand or hold your water with your left hand," which was my strong hand, she taped down my strong hand to make me utilize my weak hand. So I had, and
Your mom is a baller.
that's how you rebuild your synaptic connections and your brain pathways is you force yourself to do it. And I
Oh
was
my
mad.
god.
I was so angry. I hated
I
her at
would be
that
so
moment.
pissed off.
And
Oh,
it's so hard. But if you don't challenge yourself, you will not reach the success that you could have. And it's like that with almost everything about life. Is there are challenges and there are struggles, and you do have to challenge yourself. And at the same time, you have to be happy and have fun with it. So that's something that was very important. Like whenever I was recovering and I would mess up my words and I would do all these things and I would, you know, be a space cadet. The funny thing is that I actually am a medically certified airhead. Yep, a medically certified airhead because they did testing and my brain was swollen, but I did not need to have part of my skull taken out because there's extra space in this
I
noggin.
I that is so cute. I love that. I'm a
And embrace
certified
it, enjoy it, and have fun in life.
ab absolutely, absolutely. That's a quotable one right there. I'm a certified airhead. It's a medically proven. It had a
Yep,
little extra space in there.
I'm a
Um,
medically proven airhead.
oh god, that's priceless. That's priceless, Jamie. What's the brain like now? What do the scans show you and what happened? Have you done some deep testing to see how much is rebuilt or what's damage is left? How do you
I
or do you
did
care?
I did in like 4 years ago I got like a functional MRI.
Okay.
And so they test out your brain as you're doing activities and like they test out the connections and stuff and
Okay.
see what's working.
Yeah.
And I did a boot camp after that, and prior to it I was having a lot of trouble with multitasking, but that went smooth, and as it is now I don't have any direct deficits or disability because of the brain injury. So I don't have excessive headaches. I don't really have headaches. I have headaches less than my little sister, actually. So I don't have, more than a human being. And I am emotional. I always have been emotional, but I'm not
Yeah.
excessively emotional.
Yeah.
So, like, the year after my brain injury, when I realized I wasn't going to go back to competing and that identity was ripped away from me, I
Mm,
walked out of competing and walked into therapy because I was so depressed. I was crying like 3 times a day. Um, Now I might cry once or twice a month, sometimes a couple months and I don't cry. So compared to some people, I'm still emotional. I like when I watch a movie, I will start to tear up, because that's who
that's
I
okay. Yeah, that seems
am.
normal.
But that's just a human behavior.
Yeah.
I still lose my phone, and my husband will be, I'll be like, okay, where's my phone? Can you call my phone? He'll be like, it's on you. Um, but that's just human, because when I used
Absolutely.
to lose my phone because of the brain injury, I would have no idea the last time I used it or like where it possibly could be. It was like a total blank.
Okay. Okay.
But it's challenging because some of these brain injury things are also human things. Like, it would be
Yeah. Yeah.
untrue for me to say, oh, I'm never emotional. Like, that would be a change in who I was if I became never emotional again. Like, that would
It
not
would
be,
also be weird.
yeah, it wouldn't be natural.
Yeah.
Or if I never lost my phone, if you show me someone who never lost their phone, then they probably have like extensive OCD or something. Like,
They have a different problem.
yeah, it just happens. Like, exactly. I'm a human being, but I don't have anything directly connected to brain injury. However, the one thing I am still working on is feeling like I am not as successful as I want to be, and I am terrified that it might be because of the brain injury.
Mm,
And so, like, one of the most exciting things was actually we were at the oldest sports film festival in Sicily, in Italy, this past November 2023. And I won an award and was brought on stage for best leading role, and that was an amazing opportunity, and super super fulfilling. But I do still question myself whenever I don't accomplish as much as I want to, that it somehow has to do with the brain injury, and
mm.
I don't think it does at all. But I still have a little bit of a lack of acknowledgement of self-worth.
I think that's human too. It's okay.
That
And, uh,
very well
a
might be human too.
and you're also a savage competitor, so you probably have a somewhat high mark for yourself set. Um,
Yeah, my husband says I have incredibly high marks for like most things.
yeah, yeah. So that's just that's just your savage competitor coming out and just going. I haven't been on the stage. I haven't been on the podium in 3 months. What is happening?
He says that he's like, you have a really high bar for
Right.
everything, and I'm
Yeah.
like, stop tooting your own horn. I chose you, so I have a high bar for everything.
Oh, oh. Would you come out of the grocery store after shopping and expect to like to be some confetti coming out or something? You come out of the grocery store. Yes.
No,
Oh,
it's funny because he actually is one of the most humble, down to
it's
earth people
gotta
I
be. Yeah.
know. And he takes my airhead and
Yeah.
crazy ideas and he's like, okay, this will work, and he really grounds me.
I love
Um,
that.
but I like to tease him that if I have high expectations for everything, is that like really saying that, he had big shoes to fill? But
Yeah. I love that. I would take that as if I was him, he should take that as a compliment. How do you advise people? I mean, you had massive goals, I'm sure, as for your age when all this happened, you're at the peak, really beginning of the peak of your career, you're breaking barriers, you're a force to be reckoned with on the mountain, probably off the mountain, and you would make people afraid because you've got high, you're a grinder, and you wake up and like you said, a year later, you realize my career is over. I'm done.
Mhm.
And you said, yeah, you boom, plop myself down in the chair. I need to talk to somebody. After all that, how do what's your advice for people who do see their dreams change, right? I mean, crash, right? Something crashes a little bit, and for you, it might be like a phoenix, right? It kind of crashed and it's come out as something different and just as aspirational. How do you talk to people? What kind of message can you give people that do lose the dream or the dream is going to change or it comes to an end sometimes after a career?
Be open to finding new dreams and don't put pressure on yourself to find the new dreams immediately, but
Mm,
do things to open your mind to the new dreams. So, like, I went back to university, um,
okay.
and I had teachers, I had grades, I had things I had to do.
Yeah, right.
Structure. So finding structure can be really helpful. Going to a Pilates class, going to a yoga class,
Mm,
I went to this morning. I find going to a class is really soothing for me because somebody else is leading. I do
yes.
sometimes work out on my own as well because I love to be active. So finding things that make you happy, like being active, eating well. Um, but finding something that's structured, like joining a book club or going to um, a yoga class, Pilates class, back to school,
Yeah.
like going to community college, just like taking one class or doing an online certification. When COVID hit, I actually went back and I did online program through Harvard studying neuroscience,
Ooh.
because I had a lot of uh, free time. And I also did some things like when COVID was hitting, I still was having a lot of trouble reading. Um,
Okay.
After my brain injury, I was a very, very, very avid reader as a child. And after my brain injury, I would reread lines and it would give me headaches and it
Yeah,
was
just
trouble. So even though I went back to university and I read textbooks, I didn't really read for fun. And so I was like, okay, well, my advice is to set that habit. So every other day, I timed myself for 20 minutes and I would just read for 20 minutes every other day. And at
mm.
the beginning, it wasn't fun at all. And then one day, I was actually reading Harry Potter and the timer went off and I didn't want to stop. I kept reading. And that's when it kind of switched. And now I read for fun
Huh.
again. And I really enjoy reading. But it's that concept of the repetition to change your brain pathways. So find something that you love doing. Maybe your career ended and you always wanted to play the guitar more. Sign up for guitar lessons. Like maybe you had a brain injury and prior to your brain injury, you wanted to be really good at the guitar. Well, guess what? Maybe you're not going to be a professional guitar player, but you can still take lessons. Like
Yes.
you wanted to ski, you can go to adaptive programs and get back on snow. There's nothing that you can't do. So do something that you've always dreamed about but been a little bit scared to do.
I love that. Yeah, I didn't have I feel like I had a brain injury when I was playing guitar when I started at 52. I definitely felt like I had a brain injury when I was started to strum, when you start to strum, and then when you start to sing, you really feel like you've got a brain injury. And it is amazing though. I could literally feel my brain growing and making connections when I
Yeah.
started to sing and strum. It's hard to explain, but, you just playing chords and, just doing that is one thing, then getting a pattern, okay, and then as soon as I started to sing with it, I just went to blah, 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 and I couldn't strum and I couldn't see it didn't work. Like you're doing 3 things at the same time. It was super impossible. And then it started to get easier. And then I could literally feel something growing in my brain as I was doing it. The electrical current, I could feel the electricity kind of going, trying to make those connections across the hemispheres to
Yeah.
where it becomes natural.
And
So,
that's
it's wild.
Yeah, the super exciting thing is anybody at any stage can rebuild brain pathways and change
Yeah.
their synaptic connections. Anybody can, which is super exciting. And
Yes.
when I was recovering from my brain injury, I could feel it rewiring as well.
Whoa. So
And
cool, right?
it's like really hard to actually explain it. However, yeah, doing anything that rewires your mind. And I also recommend, I do like a language learning app every night, and just doing things that keep your brain
Yeah.
working and stimulated, so especially if you retired from a career, find new passions and new joys.
Find something. You gotta stay active. Yeah, don't retire. I mean, I hate that. Just before we called, dialed in, I had an old friend, high school buddy call, and he was saying, "Yeah, I'm enjoying this and enjoying that." He goes, "I don't wanna say I'm retired because 'cause I'm not an old fart, but I am retired." And
Yeah.
and, and he's a guitar player, and he's talking about he's got a gig tomorrow and stuff, and it is interesting. Yeah, find that passion, don't lose sight of doing something new to kinda challenge yourself. I think if you quit a corporate career, you gotta do something else. I had a question, I had a thought almost like it's sometimes these ideas injected into my head, it feels more like a message than my own question. Um, Try to think of how to articulate it, in a nice way. Not in a nice way, but just in a I'm even struggling with my own words, and I'll just blurt it out. Um, do you think your sister was her purpose to save you, and her purpose was over? And it sounds kind of a weird way, and I'm not really articulating it very well. Um, but, for you, you had a bigger message. You have a chance to touch so many people, and it was important for someone to be there, and that was her role. Does that sound too bananas?
Well, I understand what you're saying. However, I don't think that that was her
Yeah,
role. I just think that things happen
yeah.
unpredictably. I think it's kind of like quantum physics, if you really like think about
Mhm.
that. Like, I think that you should, do unto others as you want to be treated, and things like that. However, I don't think that we have a rational, reason why things happen.
Mm.
I think that just sometimes good happens and sometimes bad
Bad
happens.
stuff, yeah.
I mean, there's other things like after my brain injury. So she had a role in saving me, and I could have had so many different paths that I walked down. I could
Mm.
have finished college and gotten married right away and already have 3 kids.
Yeah.
I could have started drinking, and you are much more susceptible to being addicted if you drink within the first couple years after. I do consume alcohol now at a regular basis, but I could have gotten extensively an alcoholic and
Yeah.
make bad decisions. And so there's so many paths I could have walked down. I think we're in charge of making the decision for the paths that we walk down. Like, a lot of
Mm.
people say, like, you were destined to have this life, and it's like there's so many different aspects
Yeah. I don't know about that. Yeah. Well,
I
maybe.
had to work on. Like, I say it's a very complicated process, like, idea, but I say I had a big role in creating my own luck. So doing
Yes.
things. And then
Agree with that.
at the same time, there are an extensive amount of things that happened that I did not have control over. Like, the fact that I was intubated on the mountain is a pretty rare. And it made it so that my breathing could be stabilized so I wasn't hyperventilating, which brought oxygen to my brain, which kept my brain from dying. There's the
Oh.
fact that I was the first person in North America to receive an oxygen and pressure analyzing brain bolt at Vancouver General Hospital. Um, they that was another thing. The fact that my mom had studied early childhood brain development. My mom had a certification in nutrition. She had all these things to be an active family caregiver. So when I was in the coma, she worked in collaboration with my doctor to add fish oil and probiotics to my feeding tube. She was making these decisions. I had no control over that. However, then when I began to recover and I was about like a middle school aged person, I did have significant control over going from being a middle school aged person to being the full
Yes.
adult that I am.
Interesting. What a journey. Just and you're only 31. Holy cow. Holy cow. What it what are the next 30 years going to look like? Um, really interesting. Do you have plans? Ho
Yeah.
I mean, kind of a silly question to ask you, but
Uh,
where are you we know where you've been, we know why you're here. Where are you going?
well, I want to grow our foundation. MoCrazyStrong.org is the website, and I want to positively change millions of brain injury lives, and I want to change the narrative and understanding surrounding brain injury. I want to change it nationally, and we want to publish a book, probably a couple of books on my story, but deeper than my story. So, one of the books that we are working on right now is told from my mom and Jeannie and me. So, different aspects. And then it dives in, and we have a lot of doctors involved, and there's like a lot of medical knowledge tied into it. So, it's not just
Okay.
like, this is my story and this was miraculous for me. It's like, this is why this aspect of my story is repeatable for other individuals and they can better their outcome as well.
I
And
love that.
my husband and I want to have some kids soon. So there's that part as well. And I have a lovely dog named Luna, and so keep loving Luna.
Yeah, and Luna's waiting for, baby brothers and sisters, probably.
Oh, she is definitely waiting. She loves babies, baby humans and baby puppies. She is very maternal. She
That's so
she
cute.
she's spayed and she's never had her own her own, but she has a very we got my mom's family, my mom's house got 2 puppies this last fall, and she will like pee wherever they pee and walk them and hug them, and she's just very nurturing to the
Got the
puppies.
mom thing going.
Yeah.
So I put that mocrazystrong.org up on the placard here. And if you're listening on audio, that's a great place to, one of the audio platforms, a great place to go to find out more about what you're doing. It's kind of very cool. Um, yeah, let's see what else. Any kind of final thoughts that you want to share, Jamie?
Um Not much. Just I post a bit. I post some stories on Instagram at Jamie MoCrazy, and that can be fun to follow along on my journeys. And if you have questions, or you would like to join Mo
Yeah.
Crazy Method, it's a boot camp. It's challenging, and I guarantee you that you will better your outcomes by
Mm,
participating. I will not promise you that you will have the outcome that I experienced, and I don't know what will happen, but I also won't will not promise you that you will not have a positive outcome. And
mm.
I will guarantee that everybody who takes steps and develops the life that they love will have a life that they love, regardless of any changes of ability.
It's awesome. You've got such it's pretty inspirational story. I'll have to search out the movie. Um,
Thank you.
now that you're a famous actress,
Yeah. Well,
an award-winning actress.
we're in the process of it was for 2 weeks public, and now it's private again, and we are looking for it to come out on Amazon Prime somewhere within the next month. and
Oh,
it will be
okay.
on Adventure Sports TV, and we will have some showing and conversation and questions answers. We'll have a couple more
Hmm.
virtual premieres. So the best thing to
Okay.
do is follow me on social media or follow me on our website to hear information about how to have access to the film.
Okay. What's the biggest where you're most active on social media?
Instagram. And
Instagram?
I mean, LinkedIn is Jamie MoCrazy as well. It depends on
Yeah.
what you are most active on.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah,
Um,
okay. The two main ones though, right there.
yeah. And we do have
Okay.
like a MoCrazy strong Facebook. Um, yeah, sometimes I'm like, ugh, social media. I feel like it's too encompassing. Like you always have to like do so much on social media all the time. Everyone needs to know all the time. Anyways,
Yeah.
but
Facebook is particularly challenging for me. That's
I'm
a
on
talk. It
like
seems very complicated at times.
most social media platforms.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, but I think Instagram is a great one for most people and then definitely LinkedIn for business people. Awesome conversations. I'll see you in the chats maybe later today or next week in our speaking group, which is great. And thanks so much again, Jamie. I really appreciate you and your story is phenomenal. I'd love to see you on stage and to be in the audience somewhere.
Thank you.
Thanks everybody for listening, supporting mental health today. This is Mental Health Awareness Month. So if you're catching this, on the audio platform, it's probably a little bit gone and by, but I think every day, every week, we got to kind of nurture our own mental health and kind of be cognizant of it. And I think especially too for others, people around us and, doing check-ins, give a call to those people you haven't talked to in a while, check in on each other. This is a great month to just remind everybody that, not everybody's doing great all the time. And connections are really important, I think, making sure brain connections and human connections, super important. Jamie, hang on for 20 seconds. I'll see you on the other side.
Yeah, loose, baby.
But we're about to go and make this vessel with these great professionals at Public Glass. We're not part of the community, but we're from the outer family of glassblowing. Yeah, we're gonna go make a magical giant jar with optic lenses so that if you turn it, it changes all the time. So if you change the way you look at things, the things you look at